Welcome everybody to a special
Edition.
I have a block against
what this thing is called.
Of Book Scoop. We kind of wanted to do a year in review, like the best books we read last year. But I kind of didn't want to review all the same books we've already done. And some of the books I liked were not actually published last year. So this is kind of just like whatever we kind of enjoyed in the past year,
right?
Sort of.
Yeah.
Thing. So I have a children's book I'm going to talk about. I have a nonfiction book. I don't actually have the physical book, but I'm going to talk about it, adult, and I'm just going to revisit one of my favorite fiction novels of last year. So that's what I'm talking about.
I have middle grade fiction, young adult fiction, and a picture book.
And I have an adult fiction book.
Alrighty, so I'm going to start with a middle grade novel by one of my favorite fantasy authors, Angie Sage. She wrote a series called Magic, Magyk. Yeah, and then that's the first one. There's a whole bunch of them. They follow a boy who's the seventh son of the seventh son and have a whole lot of fantastic Norse mythology woven in. That series I can never sell to anybody because the books are like this thick. No one will read it. But this is her latest series, and I read this hoping to do it with one of the book clubs. Haven't yet gotten copies of it to do with one of the book clubs, but this is The Enchanted Child, Book 1, Twilight Hauntings by Angie Sage. And this is about a young girl who lives in a world where those who practice magic are persecuted and they're hunted down by a person who flies on a huge hawk and thrown into jail and never seen again. And this girl has magical powers and she's an orphan. She doesn't know where she's coming from, and she's on the run. It is adventurous. It has so many themes about prejudice and that can really relate to the world we live in, and it has multiple perspectives, which makes it really exciting to read. So if you like middle grade fantasy, great book to read. If you're a middle grade student, great book to read. If you're an adult who hates fantasy, I still challenge you that it's a great book to read. So it came out in 2020. The second one came out, I think, just 2022 or 2021. But I read it this year and I loved it. So that's my close to favorite book of 2022. The book I don't have a copy of, which I want to mention, it is currently out, which maybe is a good sign.
That's a good sign, right?
Is a nonfiction book called In Defense of Witches, The Legacy of Witch Hunts and Why Women Are Still on Trial by Mona Chollet. I'm not saying her name right. She's a French author, a French journalist. The book looks at who were the women who were persecuted and charged with witchcraft in the witch hunts of Europe and the United States. And they were traditionally women who lived independently without a husband, women who did not have children, or women who were very old. So they were women who were considered as living outside the norm. And Chollet looks at that history, and then she looks at how those groups of women are treated today and the things that are said about them in the press and in the media, and and she uses a lot of French, but also a lot of American sources, and to really dive into that. And it's an incredibly thought-provoking book. It's an incredibly sad book. As someone who is older and does not have children and has always worked for a living, it was quite meaningful to me. But I also have to say that the thing I found fascinating about the book is the introduction, which actually looks at the history part of it, is about a quarter to a third of the book.
Oh, wow.
I typically do not read introductions. I just hate them. But of course, when it's that much of the book, you kind of have to. And it was the first book I read in my whole life where the introduction was the best part of the book.
Wow.
It was absolutely fantastic. So I would suggest that even if you don't read the whole book, read the introduction.
And the introduction was by her also,
Yes,
right?
yes, yeah. Because what she does is in the introduction, she actually looks at the historical perspective of witch hunts and witch hunts. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. And then it has 3 other chapters. The chapters are long. It's not like you can sit down and say, "Oh, I'll read a chapter tonight," you know. But then there's a chapter that looks at independent women in the current day, a chapter that looks at women without children in the current day, and a chapter that looks at older women in the current day and how they're portrayed by particularly the media. So the introduction is the part that looks at the historical aspects and starts, making those connections with the current day. So yeah, even if you don't read the whole book, read the introduction. It's a fantastic book in defense of witches. And I'm just going to end on a happy note to revisit a really fun novel that came out this year, Iona Iverson's Rules of Commuting by Claire Pooley. This story is about a bunch of commuters who sit together on the tube in London going to work. Iona is kind of the older grand dame of the thing, but and they have nothing in common, but they eventually become friends through trial and error. They become friends by insulting each other greatly. A couple times they become friends.
Is it a funny book?
It is funny. It's heartwarming. But I think I realized I like this because I just love stories about people becoming friends, people who you don't expect to be friends, becoming like steadfast friends who are there for each other when the going gets tough, and that's what this book is really about. And so I think if you really want to think about the world in defense of the witches, is the book to read. If you need to recover from that,
That's a good one.
Iverson's Rules for Commuting is a good one for that. Yeah.
All right, very good. I'll start briefly with All My Rage by Sabaa Tahir. This one I did talk about on one of the book scoops at the beginning of the year. This is young adult contemporary fiction. It's fantastic and horrible all at the same time. The boy and the girl are growing up they grew up together. And the girl lives with her uncle, who is kind of a horrible human being, and the boy lives with his dad. His mom is sick and ends up dying, but dad is an alcoholic. They're trying to save themselves and save each other, but there is a point when they end up splitting their friendship, and it's just their story. It's honest and true, and it's really good. If you haven't read it, I suggest giving it a chance. Were you going to say something? No. Okay.
No, well, go ahead.
All right. The next book I have, so I don't actually have the book. This is a series. So the first book in the series is Front Desk by Kelly Yang, and I love this series. This is a middle grade book. Probably 5th, 6th grade would be the best age group to read it. Mia Tang comes to the United States from China with her parents, and they come over expecting life to be so much better than it is in China, and that's not what they actually experience. They live at a motel, and they run the front desk at the motel. The owner of the motel is not a good guy. They really struggle being immigrants, not knowing the language. Mom is well educated but can't get a job here in the United States. It's very good. And then there are 3 more in the series. So 3 Keys, Room to Dream, and then the one that came out in 2022 is, oh no, it just jumped out of my head. Key Player. So she's a soccer player in that one. So if you haven't read this series, I highly suggest reading Kelly Yang's Front Desk and then the next 3 books. And then I also have a picture book that we did not discuss. This book is called Forever Home by Henry Cole, and it is a book without words. And I know some people get kind of nervous and don't want to choose a book without words because, like, what are you going to talk about with your kids? How do you tell that story? But the book, or the pictures in this book are so fantastic, and there's so much to look at, and it's no question what the story is about. This boy wants a dog. His dads tell him no way. They obviously have a list of rules that needs to happen before he can get a dog, but he comes across a stray dog, and you can guess how that all works out. But here is just one set of pictures, and the only color in here is the red leash that he carries everywhere, hoping to have a dog on the end of it soon. So those are my books.
Are the old book scoops still available? If people want to hear more about All My Rage.
So, let me work on that. I mean, we still have them. It's just on my YouTube page.
Okay.
So, if you scrolled back through Facebook, you would definitely find them. But let me see if there's a way that I can make them all in the same spot. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. And I knew immediately what my favorite book is for 2022, and I could not get my hands on it, so I looked it up online, and this is what it looks like. It's called Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmisch. And
I have to say, Lessons in Chemistry is on the list of best books for 2022. Almost
Everywhere, right?
everybody's list has that book on it.
last week I tried to get the book, and in the Finger Lakes system there are 39 copies available, you know, paper copies. 23, and there's 39 holds on it. There are 3 ebooks available with 52 holds on it, and there are 3 e-audiobooks available with 46 holds on it. It's immensely popular, and it is a book. I made notes. That's easier for me. About love, reconciliation, family, and a quest for the truth. The storyline is about Elizabeth Zott, and Elizabeth Zott is a chemist, a scientist, and it's set in the 1950s, and it's very exceptional that she works as a chemist and she's not married. The storyline develops her relationship with her partner, then she has a daughter, and the book is really cutting edge between funny and very, very serious subjects. But overall, the humor and I think the fantastic, lighthearted way that she broaches these the serious things is phenomenal. She talks about rape. She talks about not being taken seriously as a woman in a job, being passed by, in promotions by men who are way less competent. Than being a single mom in the 50s. But Elizabeth Zott is someone I think you cannot not love. She is very scientific and very rational, and it creates enormously funny conversations with other people because she thinks so
differently.
Yeah, she thinks very in a straight line, and I don't know. She gets the weaknesses in other people's ideas and rationalizations because she is so logical.
I have to ask you a question, because I wanted to love that book, and I tried reading it, and I got to the part where she is almost raped, and it upset me so much I could not read past that. So, and tell me this: if I kept reading, would it get better?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. And that happens very early on in the story.
Yeah.
And it is brutal.
It's brutal.
Yes.
It's just brutal to read that.
Yeah. Because the police doesn't.
No one takes her seriously.
No one takes her seriously. So I'll just end with some of the things that I really liked about this book. The humor. but also they're very well developed characters. Even the ones that are only on the side, you get their history, you get what they want and why. And also, Bonnie Garmisch has structured this book very, very well. There's snuggets? I don't know.
Nuggets.
Little nuggets in the beginning that come back later on, and then it gets more meaning. And she does that with many things, and it's a debut novel. I keep an eye out for her, because if she can keep up with what she did here, she's
Be impressive.
Yes. So, lessons in chemistry.
Wow. So lots of good stuff to revisit from 2022 or get on the holes list for.
Right?
And we'll have more books coming out in 2023 for our next edition of Book Scoop.
That's right.
Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.